Ladies and gentlemen, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening from wherever you're joining us. My name is Ezra Yego, and I'm the project lead of the Global Youth Networks program at the United Nations Sustainable Development Solutions Network. It's an absolute delight to have all the many young people from across the continent joining us this afternoon here in Nairobi, Kenya, or from wherever where you're joining us, really to discuss youth and sustainable development in Africa. We have the absolute honor of having the Deputy Minister or Chief Administrative Secretary in the Ministry of ICT, Innovation and Youth Affairs here with us today. And as we discuss youth and sustainable development in Africa, and the theme this year really defining the future today. Youth solutions. We are, as you all know, about the demographic boom here in Africa, and really the potential that we as young people have in defining the future that this continent will have. To start us off, I have the pleasure of inviting Brighton Kaoma, the Global Director of SDSN Youth, who is going to give his opening remarks. Over to you, Brighton. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ezra. Very excited to be joining everybody this morning here in New York City, and all the young people from around the world that have taken the time to be with us today. It's an absolute privilege, but also a very heartwarming day for me to be able to kick off my day with a vibrant coterie of young leaders, especially young leaders that are passionate about the interest of the African continent. I think that's absolutely important to recognize that Africa is rising. Africa is showing extreme high prospects for growth, but also the young people are being industrious, innovative, and willing to stop at nothing to create opportunities for themselves and the people around them. I'll take this opportunity to also just recognize Excellency Nadia Abdallah, who's joined us today. We're very delighted at SDSN Youth that you created the time to be with us and also contribute your thoughts and ideas and share all your experiences with young people joining us from around the world. I want to start by just stating SDSN Youth's commitment to the youth of the African continent. One thing that is very clear in this decade of action, where we are remaining only with about 9 years for us to be able to reflect on what we've accomplished to attain Agenda 2030. It gives me an absolute pleasure to recognize that SDSN Youth is building a strong community of young leaders on the African continent. The young people that put together today's event together have demonstrated beyond any reasonable doubt elements of leadership, elements of resilience, and elements of creativity. All those put together inspire and form the mission of SDSN Youth, which is contributing to accelerate the solutions for youth solutions for sustainable development around the world. Also, I want to recognize the fact that in this particular decade of action, we are seeing a very strong wave of innovation being pioneered by young people. With the COVID-19 affecting different countries and the disparities now showing evidently, we are seeing young people speaking openly about all these injustices. At the same time, we're seeing young people innovating to address the social and economic challenges arising from the climate crisis. And I'm very excited that Henry Okoha has joined us today, because it's ideas being generated by incredible young people like him, among others, that can allow us to attain the goals and the strategies and targets set up in Agenda 2063 of the Africa we want, but also Agenda 2030 for sustainable development. I also want to speak about the role that young people, especially girls and adolescents, play in the transformation of the African continent. It's mostly girls that tend to be affected in times of droughts, walking extra miles to fetch water, and collect firewood in times of drought. And usually those things are done at the expense of education. It's usually girls that are affected the most when pandemics hit. Now the question is, how can we begin to think about innovative ways of ensuring that we don't leave anyone behind? It's for this reason that SDSN Youth places particular interest in the young people, especially young people that have proven to defy all odds to respond to the challenges that their communities are faced with. I always find it extremely inspiring when I connect with young people that are demonstrating leadership. But the question that really lingers on my mind is around how do we also promote youth entrepreneurship, especially on the African continent? Recently, we heard from the African Development Bank Group that Africa is projected to increase its growth by 4%. But also those numbers should translate into the innovations and inventions of the African youth. It's for this reason that SDSN has embarked on a number of different programs. Just recently, we launched our Innovation Readiness Program, which is focusing primarily on identifying innovations by young people, giving them the skills, the tools, and the connections necessary for them to be able to succeed in being investor ready. We are also very passionate about the city we're going to live in. It's projected that a lot of young people on the African continent in the next couple of decades are going to live in cities. So how do we start co-creating the city that we want to live in? And it's for this reason that SDSN Youth just recently closed an application for our Local Pathways Fellowship, focusing primarily on ways through which we can be able to cultivate the next generation of sustainability practitioners and innovators. But also we're very particularly interested in the idea that just like ecosystems, communities are stronger than individuals. And our mission and passion is in building our community of young leaders that can share ideas and be able to collaborate and create alliances. And I would want to invite all of you joining us from around the world to be able to join this community of young people that are doing work and demonstrating innovation in their communities through our membership program. We have an expansive community of over 750 member organizations from around the world. And we want everybody, irrespective of where they are, to be a part of this community of like-minded people. But also one thing that I also want to emphasize is the recognition that for us to be able to harness this demographic dividend across the African continent, alliance building and partnerships becomes even more critical now than ever before. When you are living in South Africa or Nigeria or Kenya or my home country, Zambia, we want you to be able to create partnership with someone in Ethiopia, with someone in the DRC. It's unlocking all these networks that can allow us to bolster and broker business partnerships. And SDSN Youth is extremely, extremely privileged to be in a space where we can connect young people and create a global platform that promotes innovation, entrepreneurship, education for sustainable development, and empowerment of young people. But also we are looking at political will and engagement in good governance. That's why it really gives me an absolute privilege to be able to have our Honorable Minister with us today, because it demonstrates that we need similar values and similar reception from other leaders on the African continent. And you've proven to us that you listen to young people, and we're very excited to continue collaborating and engaging with you. I wish to also thank all the SDSN and SDSN youth supporters that have been promoting the event and that have been working with us over the last few months to be able to highlight and amplify the voice of young people. I'm extremely grateful, and I look forward to collaborating even as we aim on ambitious goals in 2022. At this particular juncture, ladies and gentlemen, it's my absolute honor and privilege to be able to introduce our Honorable Minister, who's our special keynote speaker today, and Ms. Nadia Abdallah serves as the Chief Administrative Secretary or Deputy Minister in the Ministry of ICT, Innovation, and Youth Affairs in the Republic of Kenya. She has a bachelor's with honors in public relations and mass communications from Taylor's University Lakeside campus in Malaysia, and a master's of arts in international relations and cultural diplomacy from Akshu. Sorry, my screen just disappeared. She has a master's of arts in international relations and cultural diplomacy from Hochschule Furtwangen University in Germany. And she is extremely passionate about providing opportunities for the youth and young women. She's driven by the zeal and attitude to amplify three things among youth and women, which are representation in different fields, participation and cohesion, talent and innovation as a form of job creation and entrepreneurial skills building for livelihoods. She's currently spearheading the Kenya Ni Mimi campaign that brings together youth and women to discuss pertinent issues and onboards various stakeholders, both government and non-state actors, who offer youth opportunities for growth in different industries. I'm very excited to welcome our Honorable Minister, and thank you for joining us today.
Thank you very much, Brighton, and good evening to everyone. That was a very interesting introduction. Most of the times I forget what I've done or what I'm doing, so thank you for reminding me of that. Mine is to just first say how excited I am to be part of this, to the young participants that are here, the distinguished guests and ladies and gentlemen as well. So the theme of the African Youth Month 2021, which is defining the future today, youth-led solutions for building the Africa we want. It really seeks to highlight the different ways young people on African continent are making progress and taking agency in all the aspects of their well-being, socially, economically, politically, in a very sustainable approach. And so I know for a while, or the question that we are always asking ourselves is, what really is the role youth can play in developing Africa, which is the continent we are on? And when I look at it, I can think of 3 dimensions of development that we can look at or we can talk about, which is politically, socially, and economically. And when you look at the political aspect of it, really the first thing we need to look at is political development. We look at leadership. As we know, Africa has, it has a really promising youth leadership plan, and who really gives strong determination in making the required change that we need to build up a better reality for our own spaces and our own places. So I think what we need to do is we need to encourage more of us, and I say us, myself as well, being a youth, more of us to really take up these leadership positions in order for us to really build on the political development in our spheres. We can also look at the angle of advocacy, because it really plays a vital and effective role in making free media to discuss problems of development in a positive way. Advocacy also plays a central role in the community, mobilizing the different people and pertinent issues that young people can really raise when it comes to contributing again to the political development. We can also encourage each other to look at the talent and creativity aspect of it. What we can do, we can design and also set successful projects of works and programs that can contribute to resolve different development needs, because that's what we need. When we look at another angle of the social development aspect of it, the roles played by youth in social development are so much. and so many exactly, and we need to streamline and see how we can use those for the positivity and the build-up of a sustainable approach towards building our continent as a whole. What I can think of is, youth, we play a vital role in fighting harmful practices when it comes to our communities. So we need to see how we can institutionalize those things and try to create new social norms which can accommodate one another and which can promote development in our social sphere. And we can do this by launching awareness campaigns to educate the community on the various issues, and using the language that we already know, the language that is familiar to other African youths out there, and the language that is more receptive and more acceptable. We can also participate in African summits as well, when we're looking at the angle of social development. And by doing this, whether it's internationally or regionally, it really gives a positive return, because at the end of the day, it's sort of like a networking session between yourself from your country and with the other person. And it opens a whole sphere of young Africans coming together and seeing how they can improve their approach, but also improve on their build-up. We can also look at African Union programs and fellowships when it comes to social development, because again, this is a gateway in which we can adopt some of those programs and try to streamline them and make them into our own in our own countries, and be able to create this sense of community among one another. And then when you look at the economic development aspect of it, what we can do is we can really participate in development projects to increase our GDP. A lot of times we just focus on the leadership aspect of it and advocacy, and we forget to participate in developmental programs, or try to come up with strategies that will accommodate and that will encourage our financial and economical sphere for young people as well. We can also try and promote our financial literacy as well, because we come from systems where young people are really not taught how to be financially secure. We're more taught about how you can educate yourself and be able to lock in something, but we're not taught how to create money, how to generate money, how to be economically viable and competitive in the sphere that we're in. So I think this is another angle in which we look at. We teach ourselves financial literacy, we teach ourselves investment literacy. We participate in also fintech, which is coming up right now. We participate in cryptocurrency as well, in order for us to promote this specific sphere and economic angle, so that we are able to be competitive with other continents and other young people from the other continents. And a lot of times we're usually challenged, or I'm usually asked, like, how should organizations and other institutes engage with youths? Because there is a barrier. What seems to be happening is that there seems to be a broken telephone. A lot of times institutions and governments are not able to communicate with young people. And so there's always that void. And that's why some people like us, we were appointed by His Excellency the President in order for us to fill in that void and bring the two institutions together. And so the things that what we need to do, we need to really provide platforms to dialogue and listen to youths. And I'm a firm believer of that, because we have a way in which we speak, we have a way in which we participate. And so if we provide that platform, it gives young people also confidence, to be part of it. We also have to ensure young Africans are taking personal responsibility of their own development. A lot of times youth have a tendency of talking or saying, government has to do this, government has to do that. But when you ask young people, what responsibility have you taken as a young person when it comes to development, both regionally but also self, you'll find that a lot of young people don't really know how to develop themselves. They don't really know what interests they have, and they don't really know what they're doing. So we need to do that. We need to really take responsibility of our own development first before we can go out there. Then also there are different policies, that we need to come up with, and frameworks. In Kenya as well, we have the Kenya Youth policy that was drafted in 2019, and we rolled it out just this year due to COVID-19 pandemics. And what happens is when you have policies and frameworks that are put in place, they really, how do you say it? They really help in co-leading development agendas, because now you have a strategic way in which you follow when you want to come up with your own project or when you want to come up with your own program, so that you can amplify young people's presence, young people's participation, and also their visibility. The other thing, which is what I'm participating in, is including youth in decision-making tables to ensure youth-led solutions are incorporated in response to the different challenges, whether it's in board meetings, it's in government institutions, whether it's in councils. I think we need to really create more youth presence and youth inclusion so that we can create better decisions, and so that our voices can also be heard and can be part of the resolution. And then the other thing we need to do is contribute in disseminating of youth innovations. COVID-19 has really taught us that innovations are part and parcel of the growth of development in a certain country or in a continent, and also the sustainable approach and angle towards it. So if we do not amplify our innovations, whether it's socially, politically, economically, we really have to promote innovations around us. We really have to encourage young people to participate more, to mobilize more, and to be part and parcel of creating things that will help in innovating and that will help in building the sphere or in the surrounding. And then also the other thing, when I think about, I think it's providing the African youth with necessary support. And I've said this before, by financing projects through the different banks and loans that are there. I do understand that it's very hard for young people, young Africans, to access credit, to access banks and all this stuff. Personally, I've had a challenge with that because I'm young. I was not able to be given a certain loan. And so I think what needs to happen is we need to have in place, first of all, education about financing your project, about financing yourself and how you start. Then we go to investing and seeing how we can be very viable when it comes to these different approaches towards the different development partners, or towards the government, or towards private sector, because you have to have the information and the knowledge before you can actually now approach and involve yourself. Because a lot of young people have different projects. A lot of young people are trying to come up with innovations. They want to use technology, but you find out that financial constraints are what stops a lot of young Africans. And so we have to sit down and see how can we now formulate different strategies and different implementations so that the African youth is also competitive and is also able to access money without having to go through other channels that would really, I would say, discourage or won't be sustainable in the future. Because what we are looking at, whether you have a project, whether you want to be in politics, whether you have a program, if you don't have a sustainable plan, then nothing will work, and also nothing will grow. So we need to look at that. And I've been asked, what do we need to do to actualize our goals and dreams as young people, in line with, building the Africa we want, and in line with really strengthening our goals? And what I can say is, number one, we need to really familiarize ourselves more with the African development agendas. A lot of us just know of our agendas, our personal agendas. So when you meet other fellow young Africans, you tend to find out that you have less information or you are less competitive than other Africans. Why? Because you know less of African development agendas. So we need to start researching more as young Africans. We need to start following up on what is Zambia doing, what is Tanzania doing, what is South Africa doing, what is Chad doing. Because from then you will also find out and discover what is another opportunity, or where is the loophole in which, as a young person, I can go and tap in so that I'm able to work with someone from another country. And it's more specifically, you have to look at flagship projects. that are working in other countries, and how can you incorporate it in your own country. You have to understand the benefits and the opportunities that are there. That's the only way you can be competitive. You have to be proactive. You have to network more. You have to communicate more, and you have to be part of organizations and things that are going to be greater than yourself or greater than the ones in your country. Then we also have to take up places in the digital front lines. Right now, COVID-19 has shown us that we really don't need to be employed in an office or be at a stagnant place. You can be in one country and work with 10 other countries at the same time. So we need to now update ourselves on the digital frontliners that are there. What are the new digital ways and strategies to connect with other countries or connect with other young people in Africa? What is Africa doing when it comes to tech? What is Africa doing when it comes to finances? How can I share my innovations with other people out there? How do I respond to the needs and challenges of other people or other young people in other countries? I mean, we have to, if we say we want that Africa that we all think about, we need to stop having barriers and stop looking at ourselves as, I'm a Kenyan youth, I'm an Ugandan youth, I'm a this youth, and start looking at each other as we are African youths. I have a very famous statement that I said, and I remember when I was in Ghana, I was telling them, we need to start having conversations of Africa ni mimi in Kiswahili, which means Africa is me. The responsibility of Africa as a young person lies within myself and lies within the other young Africans that I see. Because we now have to take lead and engage with our peers from different places. We have to engage with the communities, not only within your own community, but communities beyond borders. We have to engage with government officials. Well, if you are able to engage with a government official in Botswana, like the youngest assistant minister there is 23, you connect with her. My friend, she's the youngest MP in Namibia, Honorable Patience as well, she's 22. You see, we engage that way. So right now, as young Africans, you have to do that. We have to ignore the borders that are there and start overreaching that and start coming up with proposals in which we can work with other people and create that Africa that we see within ourselves, the one that is very sustainable, the one that is very approachable, and the one that is very powerful, so that we can create one big, strong network that is sustainable and is able to compete with a global sphere. And so these are just the few things that personally I think I can share with the youth who are listening or who will listen later, because we need to start looking at things on a different angle. Gone are the days where we're just talking about leadership and young people taking spaces, but now it's about young people transforming these spaces and trying to bring in new cultural and social norms and trying to really equip themselves financially, equip themselves with the different information that is there, technologically savvy, people who look things beyond borders, because that is the Africa that we want. That is the young people that we need to be. We need to be proactive, and we need to be very unapologetic when it comes to approaching different things in different ways, because old ways work, but we need new ways in which we can make our projects, we can make our interests very sustainable. And so I think that's all I want to say. Maybe I can just, I don't know, talk a bit about my book. I think in 2 weeks' time, or less than 2 weeks, I am going to be launching my book. Well, I'm going to be launching a campaign. The campaign is called Ndoto Halisi. Ndoto Halisi in English means, I think your dreams are valid. Dreams are valid. And basically what I want to do, my approach is to encourage all the African youths and all the African girl child that it is free to dream, but you have to work hard to make your dream into a reality. My book is talking about representation, it's talking about participation of the African girl child, but also talking to the youth. I'm telling the youth that it's about time we get represented, we need to participate. And despite the different challenges we face, whether it's unemployment, whether it is you have been abused or you've been challenged in many ways, because I do know that young Africans, we get we experience a lot of things. So we need to look beyond that. And I said we need to look beyond the borders and just be the African young people that we want to be, create our own narratives, and bring in or bring out our own stories. And so mine is to just wish each and every one of you the very best in the different things that you're doing. It's to encourage you all to not give up, because the journey is not easy. The journey is not soft. I have gone through a lot as well, but it didn't stop me from being the person that I am today. And that is why His Excellency, the President Uhuru Kenyatta, saw that and put me in the place that I am today. And so I just want to say thank you again to the organizers for having allowing me to be here. I know I spoke so much, but I'm very passionate about youth in Africa, and I do hope this is not the first and this is not the last that we're going to engage in, and I will engage with you all soon. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Honorable Nadia. It's been an absolute pleasure having you here speaking to us. And I think perhaps a few things that might have resonated a lot with the young people listening today is really the 3 dimensions of leadership that you talked about on political, social, and economic aspects. Thank you for challenging us as organizations to continue to create platforms for young people to voice their challenges and really to voice the need for us to include young people in decision-making spaces. And I think also you really asked us as young people, as individuals, to familiarize ourselves with the development agenda here in Africa. And we do believe that's really, really important. Thank you so much for taking your time. I do understand the President is giving his State of the Nation address. So thank you for taking your time to even speak to us, even as such an important meeting is going on. Thank you so much, Honorable Nadia.
You're welcome. Thank you. So I'll just go back now, if it's okay.
All right. Thank you so much. Yeah, that's perfectly fine.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. The young people who are joining us live, I want to give a special shout out to the young people joining us from all over the continent. And I can see even people from outside Africa. We have young people from Zimbabwe, Sierra Leone, South Africa, the Solomon Island, Kenya, Uganda, Zambia. We have people from Italy and the UK. We have Vienna, Nigeria, Ghana, Niger, the US Virgin Islands. Thank you so much for joining us. Please keep sharing with us where you're joining us from. And we're really grateful for you joining us, for joining us during this event as we discuss youth and sustainable development in Africa. We're going to move on quickly to a panel discussion now. And I'm going to invite the moderator of this panel discussion, Ms. Amisa Modede, and I'm just going to briefly introduce her. Amisa is a Kenyan national and the current regional focal point for Africa at STSN Youth. She holds a master's in sustainability and management from the University of Bath and a bachelor's in international development from the University of Reading, UK. She has vast experience in project management and grant application and management for international charities and disaster relief planning with the WHO. She has extensive volunteer experience in Kenya relating to poverty alleviation programs, leadership, and sustainable development. Amisa is passionate about gender issues, sustainable business, climate, smart agriculture, and a key interest in global food systems and fast fashion. She has worked in Kenya to really work on poverty alleviation programs and leadership and sustainable development. I will welcome Amisa, who will then introduce the panel.
Thank you, Ezra. Good morning and good afternoon to you all. It's truly a pleasure to be here, and I'm so grateful for this opportunity. I'd like to thank all of you guys for attending, and I hope that you gain some great insights from this conversation. So as was already mentioned, my name is Amisa Modede. I am the regional focal point for STSN Youth here in Africa. And And so I'd like to begin to kickstart our conversation, and that is steered around this year's Africa Youth Month theme, which is defining the future today, youth-led solutions for building the Africa that we want. This theme seeks to highlight the different ways that young people on the African continent are making progress and taking agency in all aspects of their well-being, be it socially, economically, and sustainably. I'd like to take this opportunity to kickstart this conversation with our first panelist, Dr. Ibrahima Campo. He is our network manager in the Sahel. Dr. Ibrahima, sorry, my screen's gone off. Sorry, so Dr. Ibrahima has a PhD in pharmaceutical sciences and a background in project management and accounting, with an expertise in monitoring and evaluation in international development projects at national, regional, and international levels. Other than his role as our network manager within SGSN, he has experience in Freedom House, One Campaign West Africa, and Taylor Nelson in research and marketing services. Welcome, Dr. Campo.
Yeah, thank you, Amisa.
Thank you. So my question to you today, Africa has a very booming youthful population who are engaging in a myriad of economic activities. And most of these activities are happening within the small and medium enterprises space. What kind of policies or programs do we need to not only prepare or support the youth in these spaces, but also involve them in the ongoing transformation of Africa? As particularly for you as someone who works closely with the youth, what would you like to see more of in terms of capabilities or programs for the youth?
Yeah, thank you, Amisa. So, as you know, Africa is the most youthful continent in the world today. And while most of the other continents are aging, Africa is getting younger. Mm-hmm. And we know that around 230 million young people will enter in its workforce between now and 2030. Mm-hmm. So yet young Africa face a significant unemployment challenge. That is the first challenge for young people in Africa. Despite that, Africa's economic have growth in the past 2 decades, but not enough jobs were created. And of 10 or 12 million young people entering in this workforce, only about 3 million get a job. So that is way not enough for these young people. And 5 countries, including South Africa, you have Egypt, Libya, Botswana, and Namibia, who in which country the employment is not above 40%. And urban youth are disproportionately affected by jobless. So jobless is the first obstacle for youth development in Africa. But the real problem is that there is really few decent jobs that exist across the continent. And the main challenge for Africa is to create more decent jobs in the formal sector or improve the quality of jobs in the informal sector. So,
thank you.
Then maybe you will ask me why there are fewer decent jobs on the continent. There's because of three causes: low business performance and survival rate. The second is a high share of unemployment workforce, and the third is that the youth are not empowered. Like the honorable minister just said, youth need to be empowered.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much. And do you think outside of the political kind of sphere, is there any kind of programs or capabilities that can be implemented to support the youth when it comes to empowering the youth?
Yes, so that's depend. That's depend of the country. You have first to prioritize the need of the youth, because as you know, there's many sectors who can absorb Africa youth people, as agriculture, as business process outsourcing, transport and tourism, creative industry, ICT service. But you need first to prioritize, depend of a country, what is the best support to give to the youth. And there's many programs. You have, if you take Rwanda, for example, you have Youth Connect Africa. You have also one campaign who promote the young leaders to Africa. And yeah.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much. Thank you for your time. I don't know if any of the other panelists had anything that they wanted to add on to that. If not, I can, yeah, go on.
Go ahead. Carry on, Amisa. I'm good.
Hi, sorry. Hi, Henry. Just before you continue, hope you don't mind if I just introduce you to the rest of the team. So everyone, Mr. Henry Ukoha is a founder for Climate, and is a founder and general partner of Climate Consult and IncuMax Incubator, which is a systems practitioner and professional in the circular economy. He's an avid researcher and clean tech enthusiast who is passionate about developing sustainable business models, optimizing businesses, processes, and operations, and designing products and services from an innovative perspective. He's driven by his intense passion for the environment and approaches his work from a systems perspective, paying special attention to the circular economy and cradle-to-cradle design principles, thereby strategically positioning an organization in the green economy. He collaborates with both the public and private sectors to create a more sustainable product or service offering. And he is currently supporting and building sustainable ventures through his work at Climate and IncuMax Incubator. Welcome, Henry.
Thank you so much, Amisa. Yeah, over to you.
So Henry, the impacts of climate change are recorded to have the largest effect in Africa, food security, water scarcity, and other adverse weather patterns. What opportunities are there in pursuing a low carbon developments or other climate smart programs? And how can the youth help to drive this initiative?
Thank you so much, Amisa, for that question. And thank you for the introduction. So I think this is an interesting one, but before I share some of the opportunities that are inherent in building sustainable solutions, I'd like to provide more context to our audience, especially on the severity of the impact of climate change in Africa, and why it is important we advance the cause for sustainable development across boards. Right. So no doubt, Africa, when compared to other regions of the world, is most vulnerable to the impacts of climate change. Especially given our economic outlook, and this has created and would escalate more in the future disruptions and imbalance to businesses and communities alike, which has also further enhanced problems, especially such as the ones you've highlighted across food security, water scarcity, and the likes. And all these factors they threaten our survivability as a people. And of course, impact negatively the economic engines that are, driving our various economies. So, for example, about 56% of coastlines in Benin Republic Cote d'Ivoire, Senegal, and Togo, including Nigeria as well, are eroding. And this is expected to also worsen in the future. And when you look at climate problems such as drought, in 2019, for example, Southern Africa suffered extensive drought. And in contrast to this very scenario, the Greater Horn of Africa has also shifted from experiencing very dry conditions in 2018 and most of 2019 to experiencing floods and landslides that are associated with heavy rainfall in late 2019. And this really paints a picture on the impact of the changes in weather pattern in Africa. And again, if you look at the disruptions this poses on businesses and communities that are affected, and when you think of the ripple effect across the entire value chain of such affected communities, it starts to give us an idea of the severity of the problem we're dealing with here. And as a direct correlation to the impact of drought, as seen in some drought-prone sub-Saharan African countries, the number of undernourished people as a result has also increased by over 46%. And this is according to a report by FAO, by the way. And the prevalence of this undernourishment is also estimated to be over 19%. And to put it another way, this is saying that over 250 million Africans are affected across board. And consequentially, this has led to competition over water in this higher region, as we've seen, and which has also resulted in herders moving south in search of water and grazing land. And just to bring it down home, by some estimates, obviously, Nigeria is losing approximately 2,000 square kilometers of crop and grazing land every year due to the desertification. And this has further fueled competition for scarce natural resources such as water and the likes. And as a result, has also escalated the disputes we are seeing among herders and farmers, which have resulted in several deaths so far. And I could go on to highlight some of these problems, but my point is to really help us to see how much of a problem we are in as a result of climate change, even if you are yet to experience some of these impacts. And also for us as youths, African youths, to begin to take advantage of the opportunities that this has created as a result, in order to build solutions that are aimed at mitigating the impacts of climate change, while at the same time advancing adaptation mechanisms for affected regions. So in terms of opportunities, we are seeing massive support from government, especially in the area of clean energy and agriculture, which it's, as we've seen from the Paris Agreement Accord, it's a priority for over 70% of African NDCs. And so far, some African countries are taking this ambition has become very integral. It has become an integral part to setting the economic development. And for one, I think this is a huge opportunity for youths that can come up with solutions around those sectors, right? So I personally believe that entrepreneurship is a great tool to address some of these problems. And there is massive support in the startup ecosystem right now in Africa for entrepreneurs that are building climate smart solutions that ranges from business incubation, such as the work we do at Climate and Incubus Incubator, and alongside every other ecosystem player, offering incubation and acceleration services to startups, and to venture capitals. There is a lot of money flowing in to support entrepreneurs in that regard. And also, of course, technical support is also in place. But what we've seen so far is that there happens to be a shortfall of entrepreneurs that are building such solutions across board. So this becomes a problem. So for what I would like to leave for African youths, given we are celebrating our day today, our month today, this creates an important opportunity for us to really rise up to the challenge and leverage these opportunities that are available to solve some of these socio-economic and socio-environmental problems we are facing as a result of climate change.
Thank you so much, Henry. That was a very detailed response, and we really appreciate all the insights. It's a lot for us to learn and a lot for us to take into action from that. Thank you so much. Our next panelist is Ms. Vicky Aridi, who is a youth engagement specialist on the UN Joint SDG Fund. Vicky Aridi is a lawyer and the youth engagement specialist at the United Nations George SDG Fund. She serves as a generation. She also serves as a Generation Unlimited Global Sounding Board member and sits on the UN Youth Envoy's Global Youth 2030 Com Steering Committee. She's also the youth coordinator for Africa and Middle East at Fairtrade Africa, where she heads and oversees the youth program in 33 countries in Africa and the Middle East. She's also served as the youth liaison and advocacy officer at John Snow Incorporated, where she was the head of the youth program for health for 63 countries in Sub-Saharan Africa and South Asia, and the head of the Shadow Youth Board. She's also previously served as a project officer operations and advisor for Africa and the SDG coordinator for Kenya for the United Nations SDSN Youth. She's also served as a UNICEF Kenya Youth Advocate. She's a co-founder of the Team Aridi Foundation and the Policy Acts Initiative. She's led research projects for leading organizations in Africa, such as Microsoft's Agency for Disability and Development in Africa and United Nations Environmental Programme. She's also been a Millennium Fellow for the United Nations Academic Impact and a Kexel Fellow by the Malma Knowles Foundation. She's also worked with the leading law firm in Latin America, Marvel O'Farrell and Merrill, based in Argentina, as a paralegal for labor law with the LC News organization in Mauritius. Moreover, she's been awarded the top 35 under 35 in Kenya, an award by the government of Kenya, the top 30 under 30 in Africa, top 100 most inspiring young Africans in 2021, She Can Award in 2020, and the Champion for COVID-19 Award by AMREF Health Africa and YACS. Thank you so much for joining us, Ms. Vicky. And my question to you today is, the impacts of climate change are recorded to have the largest, achieving the goals requires cross-sector collaboration where ministries, private organizations, and businesses all work together to drive implementation. However, what do you think are some of the barriers faced by the youth, and how can we support them in actualizing some of their innovations?
Thank you so much, Amisa, for having me. Can you hear me clearly? All right. And really thank you once again to UN SDSN Youth for this amazing event and for inviting us all to really learn from each other. So your question is quite a critical one. And even before I delve into it, I think it's quite important to re-emphasize that if we want to build the Africa we want, we cannot leave young people behind, because a lot of statistics today have been shared about how youth form a significant proportion of our population. And it is indeed true, because as the World Bank mentioned in one of their reports, African youth comprise about 60% of the population in the continent. Then that begs a pertinent question. It's 2021. Why are we still emphasizing that we need young people to build the Africa we want, yet the statistics don't lie? So now when we go to the barriers, really, which is at the heart of the question that you've asked, it's so important to kind of categorize them, that those which are internal, which are more barriers faced by young people, and those which are more external facing. So when we look at the barriers that are more external facing before we come to the ones that are internal, there's some critical ones that we need to look at. For instance, when we talk about innovation and even partnerships for the SDGs, some barriers are, one, the biggest one that we keep talking about is finance linkages. And that's so critical, because if you're talking even about those innovators who have progressed with their businesses or their ventures, the startup capital is so critical. For those who are at the starting phase, that sometimes is not available. And even as I think Honorable Nadia mentioned in her keynote address, access to financial loans, even from the bank, is quite challenging, because there's a lot to do with collateral, the rates are quite high. And you're thinking, as a young innovator, how do you tick the boxes to even get that loan? So those are some of the critical things. When you think about also market linkages, it's one thing to have a fantastic innovation, it's another thing to have the linkage. So these are some of the barriers that keep coming up. And then even for innovators and young people, it's really, how do I protect my idea? Because many of us don't have that knowledge or that background for intellectual property. So you'll find very many cases where young people go and present in boardrooms, and then their ideas disappear, and you see them being implemented by multi-billion-dollar ventures. So these are some of the critical things that really, really need to be addressed. And then also going to capacity building. I mean, this is something that keeps being talked about. It is true that it's very integral for young people as individuals to seek this information and take the initiative. But also when you look at some of the programs to empower young people, capacity building needs to be more emphasized and more done. Sometimes we see so many good calls for grant proposals, yet not many people know how to get proposals for funding, for resources. So there needs to be a way that even if it's the proposal, is there a way you're going to include a module for capacity building? Those are things that really, really need to be thought about. And then you realize that a lot of young people are now moving to the small enterprise and medium enterprises. So a lot of young people want to enter business, but how can we ensure that there's business incubation for their ideas? Because that is being done, but still much, much more needs to be done. And then for young people, there's the aspect of connecting the dots. And this is a barrier that sometimes affects us because we, when we're innovating or when we're doing anything, even thinking about employment or the spaces we tap into, sometimes we forget to connect the dots to what is happening in the world, to what the key issues and the key demands of the current labor market or the globe are. So it's very, very critical that that's something even us as young people were able to address. And then also now looking at the digital divide. That's such a pertinent barrier that is often not talked about, because when we moved to COVID, this became even more pertinent because everything moved online. So what happened to those who are marginalized? What happened to those who didn't have access to technology? How could they still participate in innovations? How could they still, really thrive? So that aspect of digital divide is something we always have to think about at the back of our mind. Whatever solutions we're going to, how are they sustainable? How are they reaching the last mile, those who are marginalized? Yeah, I think those would be my initial thoughts.
Thank you so much. That was very insightful. And my last question to all the panelists would be, what do you see as the future of the youth of Africa? In just a few words, just a short summary from each of the panelists. Thank you. Maybe Mr. Henry, would you like to go first?
Yeah, it will be a pleasure. I think for us Africans, my summary would be this. We, given our positioning and given the nature of things in Africa, I think we really are in a very much more advantageous position to really, build for sustainability, basically. So, I mean, we are seeing the impact across the world, and we are, experiencing some of these impacts firsthand. And given that when it comes to development, Africa is still, trying to catch up with the rest of the world. I think this more or less gives us an opportunity to think in terms of sustainable development across everything we do. So we don't have to really be building just nature-based solutions alone. I mean, the whole idea when it comes to sustainable development and the likes is really about ensuring that you are, representing whatever it is you're doing as a force for good for the environment, for the people, and for the business as well, basically. So in a nutshell, I would pretty much encourage us as youths. This is really an opportunity for us to really rethink the way we build ventures, rethink the way we build businesses, and we don't have to reinvent the way we have. This is an opportunity for us to get things right this time around, and there is a whole lot of support for us out there if you are looking to venture into building climate smart solutions that are addressing some of the problems you are currently facing. Like I mentioned earlier on, so one good thing we do at Incubus Incubator is we are interested in incubating early stage startup founders that have, that are building solutions that are addressing some core, climate thematic issues that we're interested in solving. So there's a whole lot of support from venture capitals as well. We also have, we are seeing a lot of activities when it comes to venture capital investing, looking for climate smart solutions. And I think this is an opportunity for us to really, recreate the kind of Africa we want, especially from a sustainable, viewpoint, basically. So that would be my, final thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Maybe Ms. Aridi, would you like to go next?
Thank you, Amisa. I think as young Africans, and I think Brighton said that Africa is indeed rising. So that's already a plus. And there's so many young people doing great things every day across the different publications. You see a name or two of just Africans who are taking the mantle, who are really owning their spaces. So really for us as young Africans and really as a continent, the future is bright and our future is really now. And maybe when we are at those tables, how do we inform policies? How do we really shape the Africa we want? And how do we really own our voices for sustainable development? So as I end, I'd maybe like to urge each of you, even going forward, in whatever space you're in whatever room you are in, how will you take that space, your voice, to be disruptive, to be sustainable, and to be innovative, to build the Africa we want? Thank you.
Yeah, Amisa, so from my side, I think, like Ricky just said, the future of Europe Africans are very bright, and there is so much potentiality in Africa youth. So they have to take really seriously this opportunity. But I also understand that there have to be also some key policy, like how to prioritize job creation, how to modernize agriculture, how to target one or more labor-intensive sector, improve regulatory environment, develop sustainable infrastructure, and how to improve financing for the youth. And the most important is also how to enhance skills development for the youth, because like Ricky just said, with the COVID-19, we saw that everything's going on the digital, and there's few youth on the continent who have access to this ICT. If you see, nearly 70% of the youth between 15 and 24 year old live in a rural area. So the future is bright, but there is a lot of things to do, a lot of work to do.
Yeah, that's for sure. Thank you so much to all the panelists. It's been an honor to be here with you guys, with you all today. There've been a lot of insights, and I'm sure all the youth who are listening, who have tuned in from everywhere in the world, have all learned something, and there's been a lot to take in. And I'm thrilled for all that is yet to come and all that we're yet to do. And yeah, I think I can pass it over to Ezra, who will open up the discussion to anyone else who has any questions that they would like to pose for either of the panelists. Yeah, over to you, Ezra.
Thank you so much, Amisa. And I think this conversation has been very fruitful, and I'm very happy that it's been really around the potential that we as young people in this continent have in driving the Agenda 2063, and really how we are the we can basically create all these solutions. So I'd like to, welcome all the young people in the audience who have any questions. Feel free to key them in, and we'll be able to have the panelists answer them. Meanwhile, as we close, allow me just to share that our youthful population here in Africa represents a powerful and innovative workforce that possesses unique qualities such as resilience, activism, agency, as we've had really being talked about, innovation, and most importantly, youth leadership for change and sustainability. And indeed, we can never underestimate the potential of Africa to grow if the young people are in the driver's seat. So even today, as we celebrate this as we celebrate the closure of the Africa Youth Month, it's very important that we continue to invest and call for greater investment in empowering the young people of this continent, be it in their solutions, programs that drive advocacy, awareness, and action. And basically, it's time to steer the continent towards increased domestic resource mobilization and increased accountability for a sustained response towards the issues that are affecting this continent. At SDSN Youth, we are working tirelessly to carve the path for supporting young Africans to continue to develop solutions. I'd like to challenge the young people in the audience to who are interested in innovation to sign up for the SDSN Youth Innovation Readiness Program. The link is going to be shared on the chat box. And this is basically an SDSN Youth program that's basically going to empower young people who are interested in youth solutions. Over to you back, Amisa. I'm not sure whether we have any questions from the audience. We actually don't, but we do.
No.
We have a comment here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, I think the only question that I've seen was for Nadia, who's no longer with us. But I don't know if maybe this is a question that the other panelists might be able to answer as well. And I think it's from Behruz Afshari, which are the main challenges for meaningful youth participation today in Africa? And then another question that we got from Josephine Mongecho is, how can we ensure that youth are given the same chances to fully engage in participation of all kinds?
Okay, so if I may, I think I would like to take on the second question. The second question is really about how can youths, be given the chance to, participate in these conversations. But I think what I would like to say in response to that question is this. First of all, we as youths, we need to also, position ourselves for these opportunities. And this means, acquiring the necessary skills, but more importantly, having an idea of, okay, this is where I really want to play. This is where I think I could, I'm more interested in addressing this, the problems that we face in these areas. And once you have a clear understanding of what that is, then you go ahead to, acquire the necessary skill sets. And believe me, by the time you throw yourself into these challenges, by the time you throw yourself into solving some of these problems we have there, you begin to see that opportunities actually abound. But again, these opportunities don't go around knocking on doors for people. It's actually the other way around. So as youths, it should be more about you as yourself identifying the problems you're really passionate about solving and throwing yourself at it. And of course, you definitely come across opportunities that are already out there to support your endeavors. So.
Thank you so much, Henry. I don't know if there's any other comments from anyone else.
I could take the first question on the challenges of meaningful youth participation. And I think that's a very, very important conversation and question, because now when there's a move to really engage young people in different organizations, the biggest question is, how will it be done in a matter that is non-tokenistic, non-manipulative, and meaningfully? However, this is such a big challenge because for most organizations and most people, they view engaging young people as a favor, that we are helping you get the experience, we are doing something for you. Yet young people's lived experiences are value that should actually be catapulted and packaged in such a way that they're really meaningfully engaged. And you'll find that a lot of these days, most organizations or people do engage young people to tick a box, to say that, yes, we had this event, and yes, we engage these young people, and that's where it starts and ends. However, there needs to be so much more done than that, because just the same way you would hire or engage an expert for 20 years, those 5 lived years of experience of a young people are equally important. And really, when it comes to meaningful youth engagement, I know there's also that issue of remuneration, which is a very, very key issue when it comes to meaningful youth participation. And I think it's always very important to sit with the young people and see what remuneration works. It could be in monetary form, it could be in capacity building, but really there has to be something that is given back to the young people, because a lot of time when it comes to engaging young people, it is take, and not give. And then also when young people are engaged, are there ideas also taken into account to inform if it's a policy, if it's a strategy? Are they actually meaningfully engaged? So those are some of the challenges and conversations that really, really need to be addressed here, in summary.
Thank you so much, Ms. Uridi. I see that we're way past the time that we're allocated for this. And I think we can wrap up the conversation here. Ezra, would you like to share some last comments?
Yeah, I do. I think that's pretty much it. I think just to there are a few great comments here. Someone says, "Thank you very much for the inspiring session." There are a few questions here for Henry. I urge the audience to reach out to our panelists on LinkedIn if you would like to connect with them further. Thank you so much for joining us. At SDSN Youth, we are committed to continue to empowering the young people in Africa. Feel free to connect with our Africa team at africa@sdsnyouth.org. This will also be shared in the chat box. And let's stay in touch and let's